Today we are going to discuss about a very interesting topic about inlining CSS. I have come up with this topic because one of my clients asked me whether inlining CSS will help my website loading time or actually harmful for my website loading time. So I have also seen some SEO tools like some tools. It will show you is your website is have inline CSS or not. Whether inline CSS is good for SEO or bad for SEO. So let's get the answer for this in this video. If you are new to my channel, please consider subscribing it. Let's see what are the types of CSS. There are three types of CSS: external CSS, internal CSS, and inline CSS. In external CSS, there is a separate CSS file externally. For example, in this mystyle.css is an external CSS file, and the external CSS file is called internally in the header section. Link rel is equal to style sheet and the href is equal to mystyle.css. And this is the example for external CSS. And in internal CSS, the style sheet is defined internally in the header section using the style attribute. In style attribute, we are setting the CSS for the body and h1 tag. So the body and h1 tag is applied this style attribute. And in inline CSS, you use the style attribute to style the HTML element and use the style attribute within the body section. So the best practice to use the CSS file is use the CSS file externally. So most of the developer create a new website using the external CSS file because it is very easy to maintain it and it is easy to shareable. You can share the rules for all the pages on your website, and it is easier to understand. And another advantage is you can take the advantage of browser caching. So whenever the website is loaded for second time on the same browser, the browser uses the CSS from its cache. It not need to look at upon the server. There are some places where you can inline the CSS to improve the website loading time. This is where critical CSS comes in. Whenever a website is loaded from the browser, the first fold of the content should be above the fold content should be loaded faster and should be visible to the user. So what are the resources needed for above the fold content? It should be given immediately to the browser to pass. So what are the CSS element is required for above the fold content? You can inline it within the HTML element. Rest of the CSS can be used externally. This helps to improve the render time and load the page faster. But keep the above the fold content under 14 KB, which is compressed. If you are going to increase above this limit, then you are going to increase the HTML file size. So whenever you are inlining the CSS, please inline only the critical CSS, and rest of the CSS can be loaded asynchronously. And please be caution because inlining the CSS can drastically increase your HTML file size. So with caution, use it sparingly. There are few tools available which help to identify the critical CSS and inline it. They are Critical Webpack plugin and auto-optimize criticalcss.com. And the next question is inline CSS bad for SEO? As I said earlier, inlining CSS will drastically increase the page size. So if the page sizes increases, then the loading time is going to increase. But if you're going to use the inline CSS with caution and use within the first fold content within 14 KB, then by inlining CSS will help your website to load faster. Other than this, in my point of view, um, there is nothing connection between inline CSS and SEO. I hope you learn new things from this video, and if you find it useful, please subscribe to my channel and follow me on Twitter and LinkedIn. See you on another useful video. Until then, this is Ish.